Good evening, sir. Good evening to
Brother,
all.
how are you?
I am great, sir. Great. So I am so
Okay,
happy
now-
to see all the war heroes at one stage, sir, on the one platform. So, sir, I'd like to welcome another warrior in our group, Brigadier Ajit Apte. Also, sir, is on the call, and we have also, apart from all the heroes, starting from Brother Bhargava, sir, Kuruvilla, sir, then Karnik, sir. Then we have, of course, Patak ji, then Grewal, sir. Then Meera, Madam Benegal also. Thank you, Madam. Welcome to the call.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome, ma'am.
And
Welcome, ma'am.
our wages sub is also on the call. And Group Captain Das sir is also joining. So many stars, so many heroes of 71. Welcome, sir. Das sir, welcome.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind. Welcome, sir. Vaidya sir, welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, today is something special, special for all of us. Having 6 of the ex-POWs with us, starting from Air Commodore Bhargava, sir, Air Commodore Kuruvilla, sir, then we have Wing Commander Gary, sir, and also likely to join are the Group Captain Parulkar, sir, and Wing Commander Chatti, sir, and AVM Petia, sir. So, meanwhile, sir, Bhargava, sir, you can take over and start. Yeah, meanwhile, you can interact, sir. And
What we can do, at least 3 of us who are present here,
Yeah, yes, sir. Introduce yourself. Yes,
can introduce us.
yes, sir.
Kuruvilla, please introduce yourself first.
I retired as an Air Commodore from Air Force Academy and actually superannuated the announcement of the retirement age being increased. So that's where I finally left the Air Force, and my participation in the war was with 222 Squadron, and I was a flying officer. I was the youngest pilot in the squadron and perhaps also the youngest on the Sukhoi fleet. And so that's a little bit about me. I think somebody else can now introduce themselves. Is there anything particular that you want me to cover?
We'll do that later.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Gary, very small introduction for us.
I'm Wing Commander Grewal, as all of you know me, and I was with 32 Squadron, flying a Sukhoi like Kuru was, and we landed up in Pakistan, I think probably the same day or day or two, up and down. And thereafter, our life was quite the same as everybody else. And we got back after a year. We all know that. And brother, whatever questions you have to ask, please go ahead and we'll try and
I will ask you,
answer
not
them.
now. Gary, let everybody come and then we'll
Okay.
together.
Okay, brother. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, dear. Thank you, Gary. And of course, now let me introduce myself. I'm Air Commodore J.L. Bhargav. I'm popularly known as Brother Bhargav in the Air Force. And I happened to visit Pakistan like other brother officers of mine who are going to present here. And we spent a good 1 year there. Good and bad, both type of experiences we had. Very good and very bad too. And that we will discuss today and share with you all as to our whatever experiences were there during this 1 year. As Gary brought out, we came back after 1 year almost, and we went on our own, but then we were sent together as a team through Wagah border. So we came on the 1st December 72, and how we landed up in our return journey will be shared with you a little later. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Vikram Petia, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, meanwhile, Bhargava, sir, you can continue.
Let's start with Casey Kurula. Kuru.
Okay, so all those who are viewing this Zoom meeting, all viewers, my name is Kuruvilla, and as Brother Bhargav has mentioned, I will start from the day and the moment at which I was hit, and I need to cover the prelude to this attack, which was just southwest of Dera Baba Nanak, where we had detected what was subsequently concluded as the strategic reserves that were moving up towards the DBN area. And in the very recent past, I must mention this, Colonel Chand contacted me. He's 85 years old, and he was attending a school meeting, and he happened to ask the Air Force friends of his, classmates, who is this Kuruvilla? I've been trying to trace him for 50 years. It has come as a great shock because I spoke to him subsequently, and he was witness to the attacks that I carried out on an HMG. And that is even though I'm from NDA, I didn't know that the army had a HMG. I'd heard of LMG and MMG, but this was a very persistent heavy gun, which I had picked up, and I had done one, we did a recce pass, picked it up, one attack, second attack, and the RT conversation between Colonel Chand, who was brigade major, and the FAC went something like this. He says, "कौन है ये दिलेर पायलट? ये तो आज मरने वाला है, तो ये हमारा heavy machine gun तो उड़ा दिया है. Now we'll have to move." So it was that attack in which, after the second attack, my aircraft started wallowing. I could see smoke, and eventually the aircraft caught fire. My aircraft was out of control. So instead of turning right and catching up with my leader, my aircraft was in an involuntary turn to the left. I was at 100 feet, somewhere around close to 1,000 kilometers per hour speed, and I ejected. Of course, the next thing I realized was I saw a tree just above my eye line, and I hit the ground. And of course, I had ejected with full right rudder, and my control column was fully to the right. So I had injuries to my right ankle and an injury to my neck. So fortunately for me, these injuries, though at the time when I hit the ground, it was very painful and throughout the capture. But in the first 20 days of solitary confinement, I think sleeping on a cement bed, we had nothing but a cement bed with 2 blankets. And I think the room, if I still remember right, my memory serves me right, was about 6 paces by 4 paces. So when I hit the ground, I quickly reeled in my parachute, and I had a pistol. I hid the pistol, and I took out my survival pack because we were awfully hungry. Halwara, all the civilians had run away. There were no NCs in those days, so there was no food. And the ladies, I think my wife was one of the ladies who stayed back, but there was a lot of pressure for them to leave. So whatever they cooked was picked up and brought to the base ops, and we ate. So when I ejected, I think pretty much the previous night, all the planning and everything that we did, there was no food that we ate. I don't recall eating anything, but I do know when I hit the ground, I was awfully hungry. And so I opened the survival pack, and I found in the Sukhoi survival pack some really hard pressed, I think they were molded in such a way, black chocolates, Russian stuff. It at least in the 3 hours that I was crawling around, it gave me some sort of what should I say, salivation of the tongue and some energy. So I found that when I crawled, I had decided to crawl towards the west. And after crawling about 100 meters, I hit a barbed wire fence, which was 6 inches off the ground. And as I moved laterally, I found a tin with some stones in it. And if you touch it, it rattled. So from my NDA training, I discerned, I don't know whether I could conclude absolutely perfectly, but I assumed that that is the demarcation of a minefield, and it was true, because very shortly after that, I saw the tanks and I started crawling towards the west because there was an impasse to the east, and the sun was still rising because I hit the ground at 7:15 in the morning. And so crawling towards the west, this tall elephant grass, it sort of stopped and cleared completely, and I was now in the open. I put my neck out, and I could see that the machine gun post on my right, with a sliding iron door, and I knew I was definitely in no man's land, and perhaps in the forwardmost picket of Pakistan. I also made contact with a patrol of 4 people who were set out from this underground bunker, and they had half helmets, khaki uniform, and the helmet was green, half helmet green. So I knew I was on the other side. So I crawled back into the elephant grass, and I tried to see if I could get out anywhere else. It was not possible. So I lay still because now the injury started becoming very painful. And just to cover this injury, actually it healed on its own, as by God's grace. When you sleep flat on your back, you don't realize that, without a pillow and with nothing else, the healing process starts. And I think the only way that I came to know that I had a hairline fracture was after 3 months, I was medically examined at the instance of the ICRC, which insisted on that everybody should be examined. Those who were badly injured were, of course, given immediate medical attention, but people like us, junior most and youngest, they just forgot about us. So I think it was only in the Chaklala Air Base that the X-rays showed calcification. So that's pretty much the only time I got to know. And I'm mentioning this for a particular reason. One of my fears, which I suppose Brother Bhargav was going to probably bring out in other questions. I will cover that later. So I lay hidden in this elephant grass for 3 years, face down and crawling around. And after about 3 hours, I was almost kind of dozing and in pain. I felt a hand picking me up from the collar, and they picked me up, and there were two of these Punjabi soldiers who immediately started lashing out at me and with their rifle butts, and I think mostly my shoulders took the impact, which at that time in the POW camp and maybe for a couple of years after that, I didn't feel very much. But today I'm unable to move my hands behind my back. I'm unable to raise my hand above my shoulder, and I am under treatment for it. So these 3 soldiers who picked me up, 2 of them started beating me up, and the third person came. And a very interesting incident I'd like to mention. They stripped me completely, took off all my clothes, my flying suit and my shoes. And after they found the Pakistan currency in my overall, they kept that. I had a gold chain across my neck, which was a heavy gold chain given by my mother with a cross. And it is the sergeant who took that. And it was the sergeant who prevented more beatings that were being offered to me very graciously. And he was a Baluch sergeant, and I think today we are all aware of what is happening in Baluchistan, and I guess they were always inclined towards or well disposed towards Indians, and I think it was his graciousness that I survived that day. And then they tied my hands at the back, blindfolded me, and I was made to put on my overall, of course. And I was led for about 150, 200 yards limping. These 2 soldiers helped me, and I was put into the same underground bunker which I had made contact with. And then later on, of course, the battle was going on, immense battle going on. And the moment I hit the ground, 222 Squadron sent at least 6 pairs of aircraft in those 3 hours. And they were all firing above my head. Had any of them undershot, I would have been part of the debris, I guess. And there would have been no. And that would have been the end of story there only. But as we all know, the Indian Air Force did a great job, and none of our pilots ever missed their targets. And I can say that, I can vouch for that, at least for, all the pilots that were hitting targets in my proximity. I suppose one of the reasons for getting bashed up was also the fact that it was but natural. If you're shooting at somebody and when he catches you, he's not going to give you a chocolate. He's going to give you something else. And that's what happened. And another thing that I observed in this forwardmost picket, unlike our Indian Armed Forces, there was not a single officer there. And there was a hand cranking telephone. And for 4 hours, they kept on cranking. No officer came. And meanwhile, there was great frustration because of the persistent air attacks in the spot where I had ejected. So there was a debate going on whether to write me off or to hand me over. And there was nobody the wiser, and no one would know. But this Baluchi sergeant insisted, and he had a lot of opposition. And the youngsters in the bunker, there were only about 5 of them, but they were all very agitated that we were shooting at them. Now we're trying to look after this fellow, so to speak. Anyway, after 4 hours, a jeep finally came, and I didn't know who it was, but they just dumped me in this jeep, blindfolded and tied up. And another 4 hours or so of jeep ride through undulations and terrain, which was really affecting my wounds. That somehow I bore for 4 hours, and then I think we arrived at an intermediate a brigade holding area where I heard all this Alpha, Bravo, Charlie and all going on. And there I was made to sit down for half an hour, and then I was put into another vehicle. And after another 5 or 6 hours, somewhere around late evening, when they removed my blindfold, I found myself in a jail, and which I deduced after I was a regular POW and we started regular life in the camp. I deduced that it was Gujranwala jail, and I was right about it. So that was, I think I've exceeded my 5 minutes. That's a brief introduction on how I got caught and how I ended up in my cell. And after reaching my cell for the next 20 days or so, 21 days, about 19 days, I was in complete solitary confinement with no light. And most of the time, air raids on Chaklala Air Base, Rawalpindi, was going on. So it was, in any case, air raid precautions were in force. So that was that. And I think somebody else should take over now.
Yeah. Thank you, Kuru.
Sir, one announcement, sir. Now all the 6 are on the call. Parulkar
Very
sir have
good.
also joined. Chatti sir
I-
also joined. Good evening, Group Captain Parulkar sir. You can unmute and introduce once. So meanwhile, Chatti sir, you can introduce.
Chatti. Yeah, Chatti. Hi. Good evening, Chatti
Good
dear.
evening, brother sir. Good evening.
How are
Looking
you, my
younger,
dear?
sir, but Guru is
चलो
looking old.
थोड़ा 5 minutes तक आप अपना experience बता दो. Tell everybody what you went through from the time you rejected till you landed up in POW camp.
Chatti sir.
I start from I was down the slope of a hill and surrounded by a lot of villagers, I think. And then one young boy, he had a rifle in his hand, and he shot at me, which got me in my right side of the rib. And then they came close to me, and one old man shouted, "Oh, abhi marna nahi, marna nahi." That's what saved me. Otherwise, I was getting the left, right, and center, whatever they use with the sticks and the bricks and all that. Thereafter, the beating stopped, and then I was put in the parachute, which was lying on the ground. They put me in a cow shade or something close by, and they tied me up to the cot. By the time the darkness had already set in, and there was pain in the back because later on I discovered that I had a hairline fracture of the lower back. But I kept lying down there on the cot. I had no choice. People will come and gather and speak in, I think it was a Pashto language. Throughout the night, some people come and some talking was going on. That's how I spent the night. In the morning, Pakistan Air Force people came, I think. And then a doctor amongst them, I remember I had a cut on my chin. He stitched it up. After that, we were walking in the hills up and down. They were walking and I was put on the cot since I had pain in the back. They were very considerate and very nice of them. Closer coming to Sakesar, I remember the SU was very close to this airfield, Miyawali. We were down walking on the ground and the sunset was coming up because we kept on doing that exercise of walking the whole day. My G-suit was and all were torn, my shoes had gone, money which was there. I didn't carry any revolver. The money was all taken. Probably that saved my life. Once we are at the foothill of the one singular huge hill, I was put in a jeep, and then the jeep started in the lower gear.
Chatti, what happened?
The station commander came and some I think air crew also came and they started talking to me. They asked me, "Have you been abroad?" Obviously, I had not been abroad. I said, "This is the first time I have been abroad without a visa." So that kind of conversation was on. Then again, I was put in a jeep and driven down to Rawalpindi overnight. That was and I reached in the morning, and it was a civil jail of Rawalpindi. When I got down, it was almost daylight, and I saw that time Squad Jaffa was hanging on to two Johnnies. I had not recognized him. I had never seen him. And he looked like I thought he was a Bengali pilot who was captured by the Pakistanis. He was appearing like that. But very great agony he was showing on his face. I was put in the cell of that civil jail, given a blanket. I spent about 2 days there in the jail. There was no communication. Nobody came to me except for the thal, which was a plate and a mug of tea, something like used to come in the evening or morning. From there, I was taken to the Provo flight, which was in Rawalpindi, heart of the town, where eventually stayed a lot of construction was going on, new shelter being made over there. And then that's how I was put in a cell thereafter. Initially, about a week or so, I stayed in the cell, and then I joined Kuru in one of the other rooms, bigger room. We were together for about a fortnight or so, I think maybe 10 days. And then back again to the other room, which was in front of me, where I heard loud laughter once in the morning. And I could recognize that was Dilip Parulkar. And he was sitting on a small stool having a gupshup with the guard. And usually, the typical style of Dilip, he keeps laughing and talking to them and joking around. That's how I was captured. That's what I remember. Thank you.
Acha, I'll just take 1 minute with your all permission, all of you. My wife is here. If you can see her. Chatti, can you see her? Anu?
Yeah, I can. Good evening, Anu. How are you?
Anu would like to say hello to Surekha because we are very good friends at one time and we never met after almost 50 years since, the war, 71.
That's right. That's right.
Hello, Surekha. This is Anu.
Hello, brother. Hello, Anu.
Hello, Surekha.
Hello.
How are you?
She was
I'm-
sleeping, so I said, you get up, just say hello to Surekha. And really, very nice seeing you, Surekha.
All right, brother.
All right, Surekha. Chalo, Anu, Anu is going now. Bye bye.
Surekha, bye.
Bye.
I think I'll request Vikram Petias. Dear
Yeah.
Vikram, kindly tell us about your experiences also in just about 5 minutes. Experience only from the ejection to the POW camp.
Firstly, let me thank the people who organized this because I'm seeing all of you together maybe after 50 years or so. All right, ma. That late in the night, I think I was woken up and given a target to head for. Anyway, I carried out some attacks, and in the last attack, I heard little thump noise and saw the smoke coming out of the left wing. So I turned towards India, climbing turn. There was another bang noise. The whole aircraft shook up, and I don't know I was right side up or upside down because it was full of smoke. And I ejected. When I ejected and hit the ground, I immediately released my QRP, got up and ran. I don't know which direction I was running. And then I found that there's a little warm thing trickling down on my right leg. So looked down, I found the blood flowing. I fell down, got up to run. I don't know whether it was a hockey stick or rifle butt or a lathi, whatever it was. It was on my back and I fell down. And after that, it was free for all. So maybe about 15-20 people around, all civilian. And I had no money, I had no weapon. But they took away my handkerchief, my watch, wristwatch. And I had a nice reception, nicely hammered up. A tractor came from somewhere, and then I was tied to the tractor. I was put on the tractor and tied. Then I was taken to some place, I don't know where, but it was in police station. And then they tried to put me down. I couldn't get up because then I noticed my stomach has bloated up. So they put me on a charpai. I was there for some time. Then they put me in a three-tonner, and the three-tonner moved. And I was lying there, charpai, there were few police chaps. We drove for some time, and then I could make out this three-tonner is going over the railway line, railway crossing. You can hear the thud, thud, thud. And there was a heavy gunfire, an aircraft noise, heavy gunfire. Normally, chaps don't miss out, but I don't know how he missed his three-tonner. And I came to know about this pilot in 1985. It was Fatpat Bapat who was talking about it. He had come to Tejpur. This time he mentioned that he has also attacked near Chistiya Mandi. Yeah, I have a question to ask Guru, whether he was also in Chistiya Mandi on 6th or not, 5th. Anyway.
I struck Kishamandi on 5th, and there was a tank train there, and we blew it.
That's right. With the two engines heading towards north.
That's right.
Two diesel engines.
That's right.
And it was a huge train, about 16, 17 wagons behind.
Yeah.
That's the place. It was about 4 kilometers south of Chistiya Mandi, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
It was Patpat Bapat, and I could sense it was Su-7, but I came to know in 85. From there, I was taken to some hospital. I don't know, I could smell the spirit and all. And my hands were tied to the railing of the hospital bed. And there was someone, I don't know, whether he had a cane or a pencil, whatever it was. I think he enjoying hitting me on my knuckles. I found myself in a building fairly high, which had something like a gumbaj, like a temple, and hands tied to a crossbar and hanging there. There were about 3 or 4 people who were asking questions, and one of them used to smoke Will cigarette, and he used to really enjoy putting the cigarette off. I'm sorry if there are some ladies, please don't mind my language. But that cigarette on the lower part of my stomach, I think he used to enjoy it most probably. Then I went through various third degree, including the electric shock by something like dynamo. If you all recollect, when we were children, we used to have a dynamo, on a cycle. The faster you move the cycle, it used to give more light. So it was something like a crank handle, red color. And my stomach has totally bloated up. I just couldn't get up. I couldn't walk. I couldn't move around. Then the 2 chaps or 3 chaps took me out, and they brought a thin pipe, very, very thin something like a rubber pipe and insert it, and all of a sudden I started passing urine, and then I noticed my stomach has little come down. In between, I can't recollect, but I know one day, one night it was when I was taken out from somewhere, put into a bus. It appeared to be bus because seats were soft and I had no clothes, nothing. Everything was off, not even a ring. And handcuffed and chained. क्या बोलते हैं उसको यार, पैर में जो बेड़ियां डाल देते हैं. And I was put onto the bus and tied. I was in terrible pain. Then when the bus started moving, I felt that there is somebody else also in this bus. I could hear little chain. This mini bus, after running for some time, broke down because they ran short of fuel. I don't know how they got the fuel again, and then we again drove. Then I found myself lying on a cemented platform which had a one ventilator with a black paper on it. Light was on. There was a wooden door which had a hole about round of 6 inch, and I was lying on the platform. That is all I remember. Then days went past. Then one day, I think the door was opened and I was asked to come out. By then, they had given me a khaki colorful pant and a shirt. When I tried to come out, I could manage to walk outside with the help, taking help with the wall. And then I found there were 4 people sitting outside. I couldn't recognize initially. Then I found that was Dilip Parulkar. I had met him once in, I think, Hyderabad, Secunderabad. Dilip, are you there?
Yeah, he is there, sir.
Achha. Dilip, I don't know whether you can recollect that morning. There was one chap was in Air Force uniform, which later on I came to know he was I think ISKCON leader Sarfaraz Mir. He was SMO Islamabad, if I'm not wrong. And there was another gentleman in Swiss. He introduced himself as a colonel. I really don't know. But Dilip will remember he got up from the chair and he tried to run towards me, and then I found he is unable to run, but he was limping towards me. He came and hung on to me and somehow managed to help me to reach where the chairs were lying. And there he introduced me to a gentleman also in a fairly bad shape. He was ISKCON leader D.S. Jaffa. I had never met him earlier. When I heard this name, so I was a little alarmed, but the way Parulkar was talking to him, it appeared to me that he knows him well. So when I met him and hugged him, then I found there's something very hard on his back. So I asked him, what is it? He says a belt. He has some injury on the spine. And when we are sitting there outside, before I forget, this minibus in which I had traveled after maybe a month or two, I somehow remembered. So I asked this question. All of you used to sit down outside in that small courtyard. I said, this is what has happened to me one night. And that's the time Hari Singh Ji Jhala, he said, I was in that, and I knew there was one more chap. So that's how I came to know it. Hari Singh and self has traveled that night in one of the minibus. So when I was sitting outside with Jaffa and that idiot Sarfaraj Mir and another colonel, a minibus came, a gentleman came out who had a pillow cover on his head and he was limping. And I think he had a bandage on his right ankle. So we asked him, who's this Jim? He said, you will come to know. Later on, we came to know that he was Tejwant Singh Bhangu, whom I had met, I think, on 25th or 26th of December when they allowed us to meet each other. I can tell you one thing that in between, I don't remember when I used to be conscious, unconscious, losing time here and there, so I can't remember. But I know one day, I saw there was a knock on the door in the cell I was lying, and I saw a plate being pushed underneath. It was an enamel plate, and it had some roti and chane ka dal. Let me make the little confession. I was bloody hungry. I was really hungry. I had no water, nothing. Somehow I managed to get down from that platform, reach there, and I actually wanted to take the chapati full in the mouth and I just put it inside the stomach somehow. A funny thing happened. The moment the chapati came closer to my mouth, I could smell that little atta. And rather eating, I started throwing up. And there was nothing that was coming out. It was just noise in the air. Then I think one day I made noise. I said, why I'm locked inside? I should be taken out and allowed to be put into the sun at least. So one gentleman in ISKCON uniform had come. I think his name was Usman Ali, I think. ISKCON Usman. He introduced himself.